Going back up. So we order the Bible classes, especially junior and senior Bible classes, intentionally. Where in junior year you've spent the whole year talking about, is there a God? How do we know there is a God? Um, and um, and all of the things we learned from science and from philosophy and from math and from logic, and then proving that there is a God, and then going through the life of Christ and seeing the truthfulness of that, and we see from that. So to make a case for the truth of Christianity, that there is a God, and He has spoken to us, and He has come down in the person of Jesus Christ so that we might have a relationship with Him. And so that you understand that, and you can have an apology, not an I'm sorry, but a defense that you tell to others so that they might come to know Christ. But then in senior year, we have this class on worldview. And so before we send you out, we want you to be equipped to tell the gospel to others. But we also want you to understand the people to whom you will be saying those things. And if you especially go to a secular college, university, these worldviews are going to come into play. You're going to have professors who are atheists, and you're going to have friends who don't believe the way you do. They come from a different worldview. And you might have people in your classes that are Muslim or are Buddhists or something else like that. So we want to equip you to engage others in dialogue about faith. And so this is an equipping year, and trying to as we send you off, trying to help you engage with others about Christ. So apologetics is the discipline which deals with a rational defense of Christianity, giving a reason or justification of one's beliefs, use of evidences and sound reasoning to reach individuals for Christ. If you're just going to tell someone, well, yeah, no, I believe in Jesus because my mom told me, that's not going to work with someone, right? Like, what if your mom's wrong? How does she know? And so hopefully you will be, by the end of this year, you'll be equipped to engage in those kinds of discussions, but always with gentleness and respect. And that's not my words, that's Paul's words. To always be ready to give a reason for the hope that lies within you, but do it with gentleness and respect. No one was ever, especially if it's angry, argued into heaven. And it is when we form relationships and when we are winsome and when we are kind that people are willing to listen. And if you are talking to somebody about Jesus and it turns into an argument, and I've told you this before, stop and apologize, because you're doing more harm. And you can't force someone to believe in Christ. Forced faith is not a thing. It has to be, for it to be real, it has to be chosen. It has to be freely chosen. And so I believe not only our words aren't as important as how we live. The woman that was my mentor, my spiritual mentor, my senior year in high school. So I came to Christ, the summer before my senior year, and very early in the year. I think I told you the story about how I got there. About the bet, the football bet. I'll go ahead and tell it to you. So I'm in AP US History, and there's a guy named Rick. I don't know he's a believer at this point. And this is the second year that Bellevue West was in existence. And at that time, don't want to blow your minds, but at that time, Bellevue East was the much better athletic because we were smaller, and they just took some people out of East and put them into West, and Kevin Arnold was his name, was our running back. And so I'm in class. It's toward the end. He's letting us talk, and I hear Rick talking to Kevin and making a bet with him. And he says, okay, here's the deal. If we beat East, right? No. If we lose to East Saturday night or Friday night, I'll take you out to dinner. But if we beat East, you come to my youth group. And he took the bet. And then I turned to him and I said, what's your youth group? And so he told me it was Bellevue Assembly of God. It was called Sperino back then. And what ended up happening is West beat East. And Kevin went to Sperino and became a believer. And I was already a believer, but I found that youth group as well. So we have to do that with gentleness and with respect. If you do that, and if you live it out, the most powerful apologetic for the gospel is when we live it out. Others and the woman who this is where I started. So the woman who was the leader of Sperino, she was my spiritual mentor, and she taught me so many things. And as she would go into some place, still to today, I mean, I'm still in contact with her, not a lot, but she's living in Atlanta now, and she'd go in somewhere and talk to people, and they'd say, "What's different about you?" And she'd say, "I love Jesus," and she'd talk about Jesus to these people, and she was a force for, and still is, for people to come to know Christ. Funny story about that. I don't know if I told you this. Sorry, it was hard to hear. So from the time I was in 8th grade, I wanted to be a teacher. At that time, I wanted to be a PE teacher because I had a really great PE teacher that made me want to be a teacher. By the way, that's what usually happens. Then in my junior year, I took U.S. history, and then I took AP U.S. history. But I didn't even know I loved history until I took junior year history. And she was a fabulous teacher. Rosemary Drowns. Now she's Rosemary Brown. Her husband died very tragically in a car accident early in my senior year. And I took every class she taught because she was such a great teacher. And so I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And I wanted to, so I went in and I talked to my mentor, and I said to her, can God call you to something before you're a believer? And she said, well, I think so. What is it that you want to do? And I said, I want to teach junior high. And she said, oh, sweetie, you're called. Anyone who wants to teach junior high, it's called to teach junior high. And I did start out in what's now called middle school. I did start out in that. I student taught at a middle school, and I taught 8th graders and 9th graders my first couple of years, and sophomores the second year. But then I came back and found out I liked high schoolers and stuff. Yeah, this is how we advance the gospel, is with our lives, not just with our words, but living out our faith in Christ. So let's talk a little bit Here's what First Peter says, and this has to do with apologetics. But in your hearts, set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, which is assuming that you're living it out in some way that people will say, what's different about it? But do this with gentleness and respect. If it becomes an argument, stop, apologize. Because people aren't arguing for the kingdom of God. They're listening to it. And so it says here, when people see you, they will see your God. And that's convicting. Because if you name the name of Christ and you are Christ-like, they'll see a more accurate picture of Jesus. If you name the name of Christ and you live against that, that will also cause people to think about Jesus, but not in a way that you want. We need to live out our faith. We can't do it perfectly. We're all dirty, rotten sinners deserving hell. We can't do it perfectly. But our general walk should be to walk with Christ as best we can. So when people see you, they will see your God. And that is as close as some of them will ever get to church. So give them a good understanding of God. Live out a worldview that draws people to Jesus, doesn't cause people to run away. This is about the curriculum itself. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is a worldview. It's the way in which one views the world. That's the obvious one. An understanding of how the world works and where one fits in it. The foundation from which one lives, views life, thinks, and responds to the world in which he or she lives. Now, this is true of all worldviews, whether they're theistic worldviews or not. This is true for everyone. We're going to get into the Christian worldview today and get a little bit more specific about that. So this is the anchor for this lesson. The Christian worldview is the way God views the world. And the way we figure out how God views the world is through His Word. His Word tells us what He prioritizes. His Word tells us who He is and what He wants us to do, and who we are in Him. And so the Bible is our guidebook for the Christian worldview. And then we talked about this idea of Christians, neo-Christians, non-believers. Christians are those who have trusted Christ. They're not perfect. They're going to mess up, but their general direction is toward Christ. Neo-Christians are those who believe they are Christians, but they don't really understand what that means. I think I told you about the girl in FCA, and my co-director asked her how she came to Christ, and she said, "Well, I'm an American, aren't I? I mean, if I'm an American, then I'm a Christian." So she didn't understand. It wasn't that she was trying to be contrary. She just didn't understand what it meant to be a Christian. She found out that night. She never came back, but at least she heard the gospel, right? So a neo-Christian is someone who believes that they are saved, but they are not. And then non-believers are not saved and they know it. So we've got saved and know it, not saved but don't know it, and then not saved and they know it. And probably that's because they don't believe the Bible's true. So there's a list of questions in worldview circles, and mostly those questions are maybe worded differently, but they're saying the same thing. So these are the ones that the Anchors Away curriculum says, and then most worldview curricula has something like this. So, and you can determine someone's worldview based on their answers to these questions, and you're going to need to know these questions. From where did I come? Am I a cosmic accident, or was I created by God? And if somebody says we're just all cosmic accidents, then you can know that person's not coming from a Christian worldview. Now, if we're made by God, they may be coming from a Christian worldview. You'd need more information about that. If they say, well, it says, in the Bible that we are, that God created and He created us, then that's a Christian worldview. And then why is there such a mess in the world? Everybody knows there's such a mess in the world. You've got wars and read this awful story in the paper of these boys aged 16 to 11 who went out to steal Kias. And they went joyriding in Kias, and they found this guy who was getting out of his Kia, and they killed him and took his car. And one of them is an 11-year-old boy. An 11-year-old boy. And they can't put him in prison. So the only two options they have is to put him in a foster home or a crisis center. And he actually hasn't gone to trial yet for two other crimes. This world's a mess. It's a cesspool. And our only hope is Christ. That's why prison ministries are so important. I just spoke to someone today who's going to be the chaplain of the correctional center for teens. And they need to hear the gospel. It's why my church sends out the video of our services to the Douglas County Correctional Center. And we've had, not only have we had people that have come to Christ because of that, they get out of jail, and every Sunday I'm being greeted by former inmates at my church. I love that. I love walking there. And I, they're all tattooed up, and they're just, and they're happy, and they're loving Jesus, and it's just amazing. The gospel can change anyone, and when we get enmeshed in that mess of the world, that's when we screw up, and we need Jesus to help us. Life goes better when we obey. And then, what hope do I have? If this world is a cesspool, what's my way out? What hope do I have? And the short answer is Jesus. Jesus is our only hope. There's no other hope out there. Paul says that there is no other way than Jesus. He is the way. He isn't a way. He is the way. He is our hope. And then, what is my purpose in life? What am I supposed to do? Hang on. What hope do I have? And Jesus is that hope, right? For God so loved the world, He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him would not perish but have eternal life. Jesus came to get us out of that mess and to have purpose in our lives. Now, in the book, and I'm going to have to contextualize this because I'm not a big fan of what they say. What is my purpose in life? That should be, you don't have that. Maybe it should be in the booklet somewhere. Okay, you got it. Okay. So here's their answer. Write it down, but I'm going to give you another one that I like better, and I want you to use that one on the quiz. My purpose on earth is to love God, to love others, and live life to the fullest. What part of that do you think I take issue with? Yes. Because I have one definition for that, and you probably have. So what they mean, so write down what I say, what they mean. Because, it could be like, remember that country tune about I went bull riding, I went, whatever, and all that, and live like you're dying, or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's what people think when they hear "live life to the fullest." That's not what the Bible means, and it's not what this curriculum means. It means that we are to live a life that we are to live. How do I want to say this? That we would walk closely with God. We would live a life that is honoring to God. That our general way of living is pleasing to God. John 10:10 says that God wants us to have life and have it to the full. But what he means by that is to live out loud for Jesus, to stay close to Jesus. Um, so, yeah, my goal is to imitate God in everything I do, and everything I say, and everything I think. I don't do it perfectly, and neither do you. But that's my goal. That's our goal, to live a life, a Christ-like life, and have an impact for God, have a spiritual impact uh, that will transcend me, that will transcend you, uh, and that we would uh, face God and help others do that as well. And then the last one is what happens when I die. And if you ask an atheist, someone who's doesn't believe in God, they say, "When I'm dead, I'm done. I'm in a box, and nothing happens." But in Christianity, that's different. So those who believe in Jesus Christ will live forever with Him in heaven. Everybody is going to live somewhere forever. Those who know Christ will live with Jesus, with God, forever. So these are the five major worldview belief systems. These aren't religions. There are religions within these categories, but these are the belief systems. So theism is a belief in God. So the theistic um, religions, no, that's not what I want. There's only three theistic religions: Christianity, Judaism, Islam. You need to know that. If it's not in the book, you need to write it down. Now, that doesn't mean they're all correct, because they can't be, because they have competing truth claims. But what it does know, or what it does mean, is that they believe in one God. So Allah in Islam, uh, Yahweh in Judaism, and the triune God, which we'll talk about as we go into the Christian world, is the triune God, is God. So those are the theistic worldviews. Humanism, naturalism, they believe different things. Humanism and naturalism aren't the exact same thing, but all of them are atheistic. And there is no God. Humanism is basically we are God, not in a celestial sense, but we are the answer for everything. There's no God out there to help us. We have to do the best we can to make this a perfect place, or as perfect as we can. Naturalism is the belief that only the natural world exists. So all atheists are naturalists. that only the natural world exists. Some of them are also humanists, but some are just naturalists. They're not necessarily humanists. And then postmodernism is the worldview that the Western world currently, the prevailing worldview is postmodernism. It is also atheistic, but it's much harder to define than humanism and naturalism. And it's very tied to culture. So as we walk through this, and especially as you see postmodern movie clips, you'll kind of get a sense. But it is based on chaos. There's no overlying way to live. There's no truth. Um, there's no God. You just do whatever you want to do, and it's pretty frenetic. It's pretty unorganized, and so and postmodernist means like after this time. And there's when I was little, and even in my parents' day as well, families largely stayed together, and there was an understanding, even if they weren't churchgoers, that there was a God. The prevailing whether they really knew Christ or not, the prevailing worldview was theism, that God existed. There were atheists, but and family. There was meaning in family and relationships and all of that. And in since the 1960s, that went out the window. Where we saw riots about over the Vietnam War and people, the drug culture and all that stuff came in, and all of that was, part of postmodernism. There's no hope. There's no meaning. It's we're just here. We live, we die, and so have as much fun as you can before you die, kind of thing. And I was all about fun. I still am close to fun, but I mean, I've literally said to God, "Do you see I'm not having fun here? Like He's my cruise director or something." But and this is something I'll tell you again. I've maybe told you. It wasn't until I realized I wasn't having any fun at all. And I think that's true of postmodernists. They're not happy. Pantheism is the belief that everything is God. And some of it is just like only living things are God, um, but all of it together, and some of it is that tree is God, and that chair is God, and we're all gods or whatever. But mostly, it's just this idea that everything uh, is God, or part of God, or is God. I talked to a guy after I went to Terry Cole Whitaker, that funny lady that I played for you sophomore year. Yeah, and he said to me as part of that, he was trying to explain his belief, and he picked up his water glass. He said, "A part of me is in this glass." My brother-in-law said I should have spit it and said, "That part of me is in there too." but I didn't do that. Um, but um, but it's impossible to understand. A part of me is in this glass. I'm one with the glass. But it's very easy to live because there are no rules. Christianity is a high bar. What we're called to is hard to live out, and none of us does it perfectly. But it's easy to understand. You're not perfect. God is. Someone's got to give. And Jesus did it. Jesus gave his life so that we might be able to be with God. So pantheism is God is everything and everything is God. Spiritism believes in lots of spirits. It doesn't necessarily believe in a God, but they do believe in this very active spirit world. This would be Hinduism and Buddhism. Now, Buddhists say they don't worship the Buddha, but they dress him up and they bring him food. They bring the idols food. Both Hinduism and Buddhism takes food to the idols, can't eat it. That's happened in ancient times too. You can read about that. Paul talks about that, taking food to the idols. And so there are many spirits, uh, and so that's a same sort of thing. And Wicca would be spiritist. I don't know if you know Wicca, but it's witchcraft. And we'll talk more about Wicca as well. There used to be a couple way back when I was probably 15 years ago, maybe more. Used to go to Walmart for my grocery shopping, low light of my week. And there was this couple that would be there late at night, and that's when I would go because Jeff was home with the kids, and I got to be with them. And I enjoyed that. And they were all, like from head to toe, they were dressed in black, had a big black hat and black robes. And they had like this interesting um, uh, like makeup on their face, uh, and they had a hat, and they were spiritists. They were possibly Satanists. Satanism was also. And it just every time that I saw them, I got this chill, this eerie feeling. So that's part of spiritism. I guess it's telling me. Oh no, it's not. So Christianity, theistic religions are Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. I already told you that. We already did this. The worldview that you don't see determines your values, and then you behave out of your values. So the only thing you can see is the behavior, but you can surmise the values as well as the worldview based on the behavior, what they value. Um, I didn't value my parents when I was, and if you would have been in their home, you would have known that. I was very disrespectful to them. So by the behavior, you can see the rest of it. I also didn't have a Christian worldview. Trying to see where we left off from the other class. Yeah, we're going to stop there. We're going to pick up at the Christian worldview tomorrow.